is Mr. Neugebauer, Chairman of our Financial Institutions Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chair Yellen, for being here as well. Part of your remarks were about the state of the economy, and I think you're trying to paint a little bit rosier picture, and maybe there is a little bit of a rosier picture, but it's not a good picture. I'm looking at some stats here. We still got 16 million of American citizens that are unemployed. In fact, the number of long-term unemployed Americans is 761,000 higher than it was at the start of the recession. We've got 94 million Americans over the age of 17 that have abandoned the job market. Real disposable income is a paltry annual rate at 1.2%. I mean, the real GDP is growing just under 2.2%. We've got more Americans living in poverty than ever before, 46.7 million people. And we've got 45 million people on SNAP. I could read more and more. I think the issue that I've been thinking about this week is that when you look at the original purpose the Fed was formed for, and then what the Fed looks like today, and I think my good friend Mr. Mulvaney pointed out to point of this, is that basically we've got a Fed that's in charge of monetary policy. Some other things have been added to that. Then we've got the Fed that's the biggest and largest regulator and regulates more assets than any other financial institution in the world. And it kind of reminds me that while y'all are working on one side of the Fed to, stabilize employment, keep inflation in check, then on the other side of the Fed, you've got this huge regulatory structure that has grown substantially and continues to issue very complicated, and some people think that you've become a micromanager of these financial institutions with the regulations. So it reminds me of that statement, we have met the enemy and it is us. Is it counterproductive that you've got a Fed working on one side to create jobs and you've got a Fed on the other side of the building that's doing things that a lot of people think that are killing jobs, micromanaging the financial markets, increasing the cost of capital, the availability of capital, which has stymied the ability of this economy to grow. And so is it self-defeating?
Well, I think we have to remember that financial crises are immensely costly to well-being, and it's important to make sure that we do almost everything we can to reduce the odds of another devastating financial crisis. So we are working hard. We have worked hard in the aftermath of the crisis to make sure that we have a financial system that is safer, sounder, has more capital, higher quality capital, more liquidity, is less crisis prone than the financial system that we had that caused this financial crisis.
Time is short. You mentioned the word liquidity, and I think a lot of people think some of the things that the Fed has done and some of the regulations that have actually reduced liquidity in a number of markets. And in fact, you and I had a conversation about the fact that y'all have shown some concern about liquidity. I wanted to see if you knew that the European Commission has initiated a review process. They said after 5 years of instituting all of these regulations and additional capital requirements and kind of this piling on of regulation and capital, more capital and regulation, and I'm not against having adequate capital, but the problem is that we seem to have an add-on game here, and the additional capital also comes with additional regulations. And so the European Commission has initiated a review process, said, you know what, time out here, let's go back and look. We know what we've asked these entities to do. We know what we've impounded them with. But the question is, how are the markets responding to this, and how basically it's a cost-benefit analysis of all of the policies that have been in place. Is the Fed thought about, hey, maybe we should stop and analyze, what we've done here and see if it's positive?
Well, we have a few things we still need to finalize to put in place the Dodd-Frank regulations that were called for, and we hope to complete that work soon, and it certainly is appropriate to evaluate how the system is working. and we do that on an ongoing basis, and I think it's, of course, appropriate to see whether or not there are ways in which we can improve or simplify regulations, and we are in the process of doing that in some very important areas.
Time of the